Welcome to the completely unadorned broadcast of GameGuru. It will be in stark contrast to Ravi's performances, which includes many things. Welcome to the completely unadorned broadcast. Oh yes. Yes, I've been watching it on a test machine, so I actually been improving it, and now I gave it sound, and now I can actually hear it, so I've just muted that. Sorry about the double leave for a second. As I was saying, there will be no bells and whistles, there'll be no jingles, there'll be no music. There'll just be out and out Game Guru-ness. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the software and show you what's what. So we'll go into the root, launch. And what I thought we would look at today is customizing menus. So when you save your standalone executable, Cannibal looks the same. And rather than say it, I'll actually demonstrate it. So we'll just create a little level, which is basically just a bit of parched earth, start marker, and that's it. Let's call that our game. So we'll just save it. Let's call it my level. And to create your own standalone executable, it's very simple. You just go to Save Standalone, and it will actually build a complete game and an executable, and you can zip it up, share it with your friends. So, if we go to one I prepared earlier, My Games. So there it is. I've just created that just now. You can see. If we run it, you'll actually be able to see many things. Well, actually, you'll be able to see almost nothing. It will just be an empty terrain with no game in it. But look at this screen. See that screen, the big GameGuru screen? And then you've got here the menu page and the About page. And you can press Start, and then you've got a loading page. And then you won't see it in this particular situation, but you can have a Game Won and a Game Lost screen as well. And then it will take you back to the menu. You've also got, inside the game, this is a game, by the way. Inside the game you've got a menu, so you've got a graphic up here, you've got these buttons here, you can go into the graphic settings, and those are... So all these graphics, believe it or not, you can change them all. Because one thing you'll want to do when you start creating some really cool games is completely changing the look, so it doesn't look like a GameGuru game. It's and more than that, it sort of allows you to create a narrative, create a story, create a sense of immersion, so you can actually get absorbed into the experience that you want to portray with your game. And obviously when you click the exit, you come back to here, and then eventually quit game, you go out. So the question remains, how do we go from this to that, where you've actually customized your graphics? Well, the first thing I want to show is where all the files live. So we'll go back to our root folder. Now, I must apologise in advance. I think this broadcast will be in two sections. There'll be an advanced bit where I'm going to go through files and show you things like art packages, how you can edit files and change them and all that kind of stuff. And then sort of the easy side, where I'll just create a little simple game where you can win and lose. So we can trigger those win screens and the game over screen as well, because we'll need a game in order to trigger all the screens. And I've not scripted this. You'll find one common theme with my broadcasts is I don't script anything. And I don't mean lower script. I mean I don't prepare materials in advance. I just throw myself into it and we see what happens. So I must apologise in advance if it turns out that I'm giving you erroneous information. So we'll start off quite simply in the files. But before that, I just want to describe what you're looking at here. So I'll just get rid of all that so you can focus. I have all my Steam games on my D drive because it's a nice big D drive, and I install my Steam library. So you can see Steam library because that's where I've installed Steam, and you'll find if you follow this will be the same for your implementation as well. You'll have Steam or Steam library, then Steam apps, then Common, then GameGuru, and all these files, and that will be consistent for anyone who's got GameGuru installed via Steam on their machines. And the folder we're most interested in is here, the files one. I won't bore you with the details of what all these do, but by all means send me a message or a post if you want a broadcast session where I go through every single folder and every single file and file type and describe what it all does for the elite super advanced users out there. But for right now, you won't need to know most of that. The software just absorbs all those graphics and deals with it at the front end. But the one thing you have to do at the back end right now is changing the menu graphics. Eventually we'll have a nice little front end graphic user interface so you can import media, move them around, add buttons, subtract buttons, all that kind of cool stuff. That is actually in the voting board. I'll introduce that really quick. If we go to our website, the GameGuru, the Easy GameMaker, and then we look for our voting board, here it is, Community Vote. So if you click that one, you'll be taken to this page, which is called Feature Vote. And you'll see you can choose all these different things. And based on the number of votes cast, we'll work on the most popular feature, and then the next most, and then the next most, going down. And somewhere in there, we'll be customizing menus. And I don't think that's winning at the moment. If we just go to view results. Bum, 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 bum. Who wins? It's collating quite a lot of information. Also, it's streaming a huge amount via the broadband, so it's going to be a little slower than normal. So here we go. As you can see, winning by a clear majority is save and load progress. So basically that's the idea that when you're playing your standalone, at any time you can click menu, press save it under different slots, and then anytime you want to restore an earlier position, you just go to the menu, select load in an old position, and then it restores everything. The player stats, the enemy positions, the enemy stats, any game stats. Probably going to use some really great crazy lower block style saving, so it'll basically save everything, every state, which is really what we need. So it means moving all the non-lure values over to lure, and then do some sort of lure state block save. That way you can guarantee that the values will be preserved and there won't be situations where there'll be missing values. But I digress. This is the place where you're going to find, there it is, actually it's pretty high up, cool, menu editing. So that one is where you can actually select import, or you can drag media into the menu, maybe drag some music as well while we're at it, so you can give your menu some sound and some music. And the idea is you'll just be able to just WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, drag some stuff in, move it around, delete stuff, press save, give it a name, and you'll instantly create all the menus for your standalone executable. But today, that doesn't exist. When this feature gets to the top, then it will exist, because it won't take that long to create. What we have to do right now is divert into the files folder and change files manually. So for this, the prerequisites, you'll need to be familiar with Windows Explorer, so you understand the idea of folders and files. You need to be familiar with an art package, the ability to load in things like PNGs and JPEGs, edit them and then save them out into a proper location, and a little bit of understanding about encryption, in the sense that you can edit the files here because these aren't encrypted, but once you save your standalone executable, those files become encrypted, and I'll show you that a little bit later, i.e. you cannot edit an encrypted file, it's been protected, so your end users can't get access to your original artwork. And as I said before, I'm making this up as I go along, so forgive me if I go into the wrong folder. As I say, I'm ad-libbing all of this. So I'm going to guess, it's the best word for it, I'm going to guess it's in Titles Bank. And it's in default. And there's many files here. And inside there, many more files. So I'm getting familiar now with what all this is. Perhaps a better way is if I go to View, Large Icons. Actually, a bit too big that. Let me just bring it down a touch. That's probably a better way to demonstrate this one. Forget these folders for a second, but those are the ones we'll really be focusing in on. Look at all these other things. About.png, abouthover.png. So you can imagine that button is the graphic that's going to be used when you want to put the about button on the screen. And the about hover is what the graphic will change into when the mouse moves over that button. So you've got a back button, and when you hover over it, a continue button when you hover over it, exit to desktop. This is in the sub-menus inside the game. So rest assured, every single one of these graphics is one graphic that's going to be used as part of the menu system all the way down. So you could basically load each of these PNGs in, edit them, save them back out into this location, and then everything you save standalone will actually use these graphics, and it will encrypt them for you as well. But you'll notice back one, there's this. What is this? I hear you think. The escape. Well, actually, we anticipated that you might not want to overwrite your default graphics, because what if you just wanted to create another game the next day and you didn't want your specialized graphics? Well, what you can do, it's pretty cool. Default will always use these graphics except when you've specified another style of menu and that file of the same name exists here. Actually, I've just realised we probably do support music in the title screen, which is pretty cool. I didn't realise we'd done that. Implemented, then forgotten about, and undocumented, so I apologise in advance. But here it is. You heard it here first. Style.txt. As you see, it's defaulting to the default folder, but if we change that text to the escape, it would use the media that's in the escape. But all this waffle, you probably want to see something real. So those are the buttons. What about those big pages in the backdrop? Well, that's where these folders come in. You've got different resolutions, so they're just folder names, and I've just given them all these. What it actually does, it figures out what desktop resolution you're running at, and then it will actually parse each of these folder names and figure out which is the closest resolution to the one you're running. It does that so it gets the best per pixel quality. So, for example, if you're running at 2K monitor and you only supplied it with a 1K backdrop image, it would have to stretch it. So there'd be 2 pixels which are actually pulling from the same pixel on the image in order to stretch it across the screen. So what you can do is provide a larger, and you can only use these for now. It isn't arbitrary. I'm pretty sure these are hard-coded. But if I've got a bit clever that day, I've made it so it's just any resolution can be created as a folder, and then what happens is the engine goes inside. Let's take the one closest to mine, 366.768, and you get these 5 JPEGs, and those will always be the same name. Title, which is the title screen, and then loading, which is that loading page. About is when you click the about button, and then end. Loss is when you game over, and then end is when you win the game. So those same names, different folder names. And another thing you can do is actually, I've just contemplated whether I should actually modify this default stuff at all, or actually show you how to create your own custom stuff, which I think I will. So I'll copy that. I'll demonstrate another cool thing. Let's call it my first menu. Menus. Now, like I said, it will always use the default except when a file exists here. And so we're going to use this one, and we're going to change the style to the name of that folder. So we're going to change it from default to my first menus. So it will continue to use default unless there is a file appropriate here. Great. So the next thing I want to do is load up our package. I've already got a .jpeg assigned to PaintShop Pro, the last version I bought, which was many years ago, which is fine because it works. It does everything I want. The closest I could find to Paint from the Amiga. And as you can see, this is the backdrop screen that you normally see when you create a standalone executable and then run it. So what I'm going to do is customize it a little bit. I'm not going to be very arty. This is really about the back end stuff more than it is about artwork. And when I say crude, I mean very crude. But all it needs to be is so you know that it's actually going to use this image. Yes, style. There you go. So that's my new title screen. I'll save that. And we want a loading screen. So drag that into the same package. What shall I do for this? How about Okay, how about blanking it out completely with red, and then we'll draw oops, a text along the lines of please wait. So please wait. A bit bigger than that. Obviously you can use any package you want as long as it saves it out in the appropriate format. We're using JPEGs, so make sure that all your images are JPEGs for these particular screens. Then you want one for the about, so we'll keep that pretty similar to the title screen. Maybe we'll mirror it, and just some different graphics. Obviously what you would probably do here is instructions for the game, so maybe I'll do the same. So instead of black I'll have white, and I'll do something like press some keys to play game. Yep, doesn't quite fit, so we'll keys and then down there. Okay, so those are your instructions. Now you notice there's no buttons on these pages. That's because the buttons are added separately by the engine using the graphics that you saw before. So that's that one. And lost, what happens if you lose the game? Well, it would be game over, wouldn't it? So let's do that. Game over. That's that one. Save that. Always remember to save. And finally, end. That's when you've actually won the game. Maybe you want a little reward for showing that you've done really well. So maybe I'll do a picture of me. So there's my head, there's me shoulders, there's my belly, some eyes, a mouth, and some spiky hair. No, that's just me just getting out of bed. Yeah, really scruffy. And then a thumbs up, so a thumb with some fingers. Yes, style. So there you go, that's my congratulations, you've won the game. And just so reinforce it, congrats. There you go. Obviously you're going to take a bit more time than I am right now. So those have been customized, and we've got it in this 31366, which is the closest resolution, and the style is now pointing to that. And just to show that the buttons also work, let's see this about, these two about graphics. Let's move them into there. Remember, the file names have to be exact. If they're even slightly out, the engine won't be able to find them, and you won't be able to do much with them. For this, we'll just do a bit of maybe inversion. So image, color, negate, save. It has an alpha on them as well, so just be aware of that. If you're going to take these and modify them, be aware there is an alpha channel, and I'll show you what that is now. So once I've negated it and saved it, I'll show the if I go to select, load alpha channel, obviously your packageable Vera, you see this? The white is solid, the grey is semi-transparent, and then the black is not draw at all. So you can see how it will fade in and get strong, and then it will be black. So you actually end up with black text because that's what you can see there. So given that, what you could actually do, because the alpha mask is actually drawing the button and the shapes of the text, you could even do something like this. Make it yellow. No, green. Better green. Save. And so the alpha will come through, and then that'll demonstrate what I mean by alpha when we actually run it. So now it's pretty interesting now. We've created our own set of screens at that resolution. We've changed two of the buttons. We've changed the style.txt to point to the new folder that we've created. Now it's the litmus test. Will that actually do anything? Will it work? Well, I don't know. This is actually on the fly. I have no idea. But just to make sure that we're going to do it proper, let's delete that what we did before. So it's empty folder. And let's change the game a little bit. Something that may eventually become an actual game. Let's pick some scenery. And let's pick a candlestick and then make it massive. Yeah. Extract it, copy it, come out. So, there you go. Maybe that's some sort of road that you have to pass through, and then something cool will happen. But I'm going to get carried away with the game at this stage. This will be the easiest part of my broadcast. Let's go back to the insanely difficult part. Not insanely difficult, just it's advanced. It's advanced stuff. I don't really want you to go into the files because I don't think you have to. Let us do that. Let us create features to do that stuff for you. But right now, it shows that it's possible. So there's our level. Again, we'll do save standalone. Now in the background, automatically, because we changed all them files, it will be able to detect these new files. And when it builds the standalone executable, it's going to use the style that you specified in style.txt. So in theory, it's going to use that new 1366 by 768 resolution and those different buttons. But I don't know that until this is actually finished. This is brand new stuff. Now, a crash. So this proves, without a shadow of doubt, that it's actually on the fly. As you can see, I've changed the style, but it's missing that. So already, I know what to do. Because remember, my first menu only had that one. Now I assumed that you only needed to put in the resolutions that you changed. But the software actually wants all of them. Which I suppose is fine. It protects you. It basically makes sure that there is always great graphics. What you could probably do is take this one and just cut and paste and then rename it to the resolution that you want. But what I'm going to do is the quicker way, just for this demonstration. I'm going to take all the default folders except the 1366768 and I'm going to drop it into there. That way it has all the appropriates. Now, I'm also expecting some sort of crash because you've only got these two buttons in. Because the last time I actually looked at this implementation, it would only take from the other folder if these didn't exist. So it will be very interesting to see if we're going to get another crash. If we are, it's very simple. You just move everything across and you make a complete copy of it. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to do it again. So save standalone, please. If it shows up here as a little red icon, then... Oh, it worked, did. That's alright. I apologise for the runtime error, but you know what? This is live. This is all live and screwed up. So my level, files. Now, as I said, everything's encrypted now, so you won't be able to view your images, but you can see this. Luke's style is now pointing at that. All the default images for the buttons are there. Everything that we copied over is there. Let's hope my resolution is 1366768. But let's not dilly-dally, let's run my level. So I'll show you where that file is later. Fingers crossed. Will it? Won't it? Yay! It does it! I'm as surprised as you. In fact, more surprised because you didn't know what you was going to get. So there you go. That's our new title screen. We go to About. Those are all our instructions. Press some keys. That's enough for now. And we can everybody remember what the button was? Yeah, this was it, the About button. So it seems like the button isn't being picked up, which is very interesting. So we'll have a look at that a bit later, maybe. So you press Start. As you see, we changed the loading page to a great big red one. Please wait. Then it should go into the game with the two massive candlesticks, so we'll call them our tower candlesticks. There's no game winning or losing at the moment because you've got 3 lives, but no one's going to take your lives away from you. And there's no win zone, so you can't win the game, so you're just going to run around forever. If we press Escape, we can go to our game menu. So About button's not hiding there. So I'm guessing, my guess is, it's actually not using the style for the buttons, so those buttons will have to be probably changed in default, which I'm going to do anyway. I'll make a backup first though. So we go back to the main menu, and So the next thing we're going to do, quit. So that's great. That's a great first step. So we go back to here, which is, remember, our Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, GameGuru, Files, Title Bank, we've found out that these aren't being picked up at the moment from this folder. We could put that down as a bug and then we can fix that and restore that functionality. What you can do right now is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a backup of default because I want to be able to reverse what I've done. Take my two changes, cut them out of here because they're not really needed anymore, drop them into default, overwrite those two files, so about, hover and about are now been overwritten essentially, and we can go back to our GameGuru and do save standalone again. Great. So we go back to my level and we can't actually see all we can do is run it and see if our buttons changed. Bum, bum, bum. There you go. So you can see you drop the changes you want to the buttons in the default folder for now, and make sure you make a backup if you want to go back to these or as a point of reference. But as you can see how the alpha works, in the image it was a solid, but the alpha allows you to fade it in and then fade it out. And even though we actually changed the hover graphic to completely green, the alpha is actually showing you the semi-transparency up to solid, and then the text is the most solid, but not entirely solid, otherwise it would be... Actually, it probably is 100% solid. That's the original green colour. So it gives you a little bit of insight into how to modify buttons. But the two screens you've not seen yet is game win and game lose, and the only way to do that is to create a game, which is what we're going to do now. And let's keep it super simple. Got a couple of minutes left, so I can fit my making a game under 30 minutes. We don't want a trigger zone, we want a win zone. So that's how you would win. We want a possibility of losing very easily, so we change our lives to 1. Apply changes. We don't give ourselves a weapon, so we'll give some powerful character. Maybe Masked Soldier carries a gun, so we'll put him over here, so there's a chance you could actually run through. We'll save that level. Remember to save early, save often. And then we're going to do save standalone again. So it's going to save our latest version. Like I said, I'm not going to give myself a weapon. I'm just going to be able to win or lose. And go into save standalone folder, run the executable, which will launch our new game. Remind me, or I should remind myself to show you where this graphic is, made with GameGuru. It's not mandatory. We have no license restrictions. If you want to completely obliterate all reference to GameGuru for your final distributable, that's absolutely fine. No worries at all there. Press start. Load the game. And then, let's see if we can win first. Obviously he's looking the other way, so it's going to be easy. This just have to run into the win zone through the candlesticks. Fades out in victory. Congrats! There you go. Crazy cool thing. Continue. We'll go back to the main menu, and then you can play the game again by pressing start. And remember the top of the voting board? In that menu right at the beginning there'll be one for load, so you can actually load in. So now let's see if we can get killed without... We've only got 1 life, so we're going to get shotted. And because we've got 1 life, it's game over, and that's it, the end of the game. So continue. And what we might have on that screen as well is load previous game or load any game. So there'll be another menu button here for load game, and then inside the game itself, save game, or maybe a key for quick save. And that would complete the set. And I think everyone would be happy, because that's, what is it, 3,500 people saying yes? Well, not 3,500 people, but that's how many points have been accumulated for it. So there it is. You've actually been able to custom... Oh, that was one thing I wanted to show you, where that splash screen was. Don't quite know myself, actually, so I'm going to have a bit of a rootle around for it. And I was not in Title Bank, because I've pretty much exhausted all that. It's not in Terrain Bank. It's probably in Language Bank, maybe? Neutral? Game Core, HUDs, ammo panels and sliders. No, it's not in there. English, artwork, watermarks. Could it be this? Well, obviously, if I try and load that, this is the introduction to encryption. I want to load that object into my art package. So I double click. This is not a valid JPEG file. The reason, of course, is because it's encrypted. So if we go to its equivalent location, files, language bank, English, artwork, watermark, the same file, see there's no underscore e underscore, that means it's not encrypted. And there it is. And as to be added with the folders, there's also file names with all these different variations. So the closest one to your resolution is the one it's going to choose. And I actually know mine. So what I'm going to do, if you wanted to, again, I'm being paranoid, so I'm going to copy the watermark folder. So I've got a backup. I'm going to pick the one that I think is going to be the one I can change, drag it in. And there's the current splash screen. I actually quite like my character, so I'm going to copy it and I'm going to put it as the feature of my game. And you know, and then you want to credit yourself, written by Cool Dude. Make it a bit smaller and then stick it in. Save that. Obviously you're going to have to create different sizes. That's 1366 by 768, and then you've got all these other ones. So basically start at the highest resolution, create your artwork for that, and then just basically reduce, copy to that, reduce, copy to that, all the way through. So you've got good per pixel quality on all your screens. So what have we got now? That obviously the encrypted, I'm showing you the wrong thing. That's the unencrypted ones. But it's actually saved now. So in theory, all we're going to do is, again, save standalone. So what we'll probably do is have a menu system. When you click save standalone, it doesn't just dump out the executable. It will let you go in and edit attributes, including all these screens and buttons and maybe different button styles. So we go back to our My Games, run it. Now the first thing you're going to see, in theory, yeah. See, I've completely got rid of the logo. You don't need the logo, you can put anything you want in there. One thing you probably have to live with is the preparing core files text. So when you're designing your text, design the graphics around where that text is going to appear. And then it'll all look very mint and nice and cool. But that's the only place that text will appear. So that hits it at about 32 minutes. So I think I probably created the game in less than 30 minutes, which is something I'd like to try and do more often than not, because it's just a really cool thing to claim. So I'm going to go over to the messages. Hopefully Ravi has been keeping you answered and busy and stuff, but maybe there are some things that have been requested and then I can demonstrate. So I'm just going to go to the top and read through all the conversation. Don't worry about not attending the live, that's absolutely fine. One of the reasons we're producing all these broadcasts, we don't necessarily mind that there's no one listening to me right now, because it gets uploaded to YouTube for prosperity, and then you've got a resource to learn about all these different things demonstrated live. So it's absolutely fine, you don't have to be here. But the users account will increase over time, and then this commentary box on the right is going to get absolutely crazy and just keep scrolling. There'll be just no way to answer any questions because no one can read that fast. Let's see if there's any question marks. That's usually what I look for. It's actually mostly commenting from Ravis. Ravi, do you have any questions? Dink, dink, dink. Everyone's on. Blah, blah, blah. There's a question. Oh yeah, that was a suggestion from Pirate Mike as to where the splash screen was. Thanks for that. I should really look at my comments more. I've been told off for that actually. And the watermark and edit screens looking. Yeah. So hopefully that was useful. There seems to be no questions as well, so maybe I've answered all I need to answer. I suppose what I can do is something I did want to show if I had time, and I do have time, so I'm going to show it. Remember we was running to this win zone, it was just a little bit too easy, and you want to make your game a bit more interesting, so it's not just, you know, start here, run to there and you're done, which can not make for the best kind of game. Let's say we had this processional way and we had to get to that win zone, but we wanted to make it a little bit difficult. This is what you can do. We'll create some details on the floor, and then we're going to get an entity that can block our way. So maybe a big wall. like this, and I'm going to hold down shift so it can retain it on the, and I'm going to block myself in, you see, making it very difficult for me to run anywhere that hasn't been designated. See, I have to run through that gap now because I'm basically blocking the player off, and then I'll have them go this way, and then they have to run around there, and so they don't run off, I'll put some other walls in, and then I'll get them to turn again, so they have to turn around here and around here, and then they've got to turn again, and then maybe they can get to the gate like so, and I'll just block it off there. So you can see you start here, you've got to run all the way around there, and just to sort of make it pretty clear, I will draw a path where they actually have to go. And I do apologise, yes, this is very, very crude, don't worry, but this isn't the final result, this is me rushing through a creation very, very quickly. And now the enemy's kind of outside, there's no way he's going to endanger us, but this is what I can do, is along the way I can drop him in here, and then extract him and create a couple of versions of him. One here and maybe one there. Let's see what it's called. I need that for my next little trick. It's called Masked Soldier, so we'll stick that in the clipboard. Just as Control C. Now I could run through there and I'll probably get past both of them, then go to the exit, and then I've won the game. But wouldn't it be great if they actually only spawned when you actually ran past them? You see, for example, you're going to run round there, and what if I actually put something that obstructed you, and then this guy could catch up? But you only wanted him to sort of appear once he'd run past you. And the way you can do that is pretty cool. First thing you do, make sure he's not spawned at the start. And there's a property called Spawn at Start. Set that to no. That means he won't appear when the game starts. It's going to appear sometime later. And so Masked Soldier is his name. Apply changes. And then what we're going to do is create a trigger zone. When you enter a trigger zone, things get triggered. So I'm going to cut the trigger zone across here. So the idea is you run past this trigger. As soon as you enter the trigger zone, this guy appears and he starts shooting from behind. Go to Properties. It's already set to player in zone, so that script says when player enters zone, activate an entity that's been specified in if used. So the entity is called Masked Soldier, so that's what gets activated. So we click Apply Changes, and then what happens is that soldier will only appear when you run through that zone. And similarly, we can do the same here. And it's good that I do too, because you need to understand the idea about the identity of things. So actually I want to put that a bit earlier. So I'll put that there. But when I say identity, what I mean is, let's put him here, just behind you. If we go to Properties, that's also Masked Soldier. So you can see what's going to happen. If you run through the first trigger zone, it's going to activate any entity that's called Masked Soldier. So both soldiers will appear at once. So what I need to do is give it a different name. So I'm going to call it Masked Soldier 2. So this is a different identity now than that other Masked Soldier. And then when you run through this, again, it's just a trigger zone. And then I'm going to activate Masked Soldier 2. So it's only responsible for activating that one entity. Of course, it doesn't have to be one entity. Remember, now that entity has been defined, you can actually make 3 of him. They're all called Masked Soldier 2. They'll all activate as soon as you trigger this, and then you're in a whole heap of problems. And like I said, we don't want to make it too easy, so what we're going to do is pile up a lot of obstructions. So we get some boxes. These will do. And we'll put a few static ones down first, just to make it a bit of an obstruction. And then we'll switch to dynamic with the Y key. Press return, which put things on top of things if it has to, if it can. And then I'm going to hold down shift and just put down all these dynamic ones. And dynamic ones with the return pressed will stack. Even static ones will stack. But as you can see, I'm really just crowding this corner. So you can't get through it too quick, which gives your enemy, which has been hiding up until recently, an opportunity to do some damage. I'm not going to do this to the other one. I just want to demonstrate the idea that you can put obstacles in your game to slow down the progress of your player and therefore giving rise to these intense moments of activity. So there you go. That's going to do some interesting things. I mean, there's a few crossovers though where two dynamic objects will overlap each other, and when the physics kicks in, they'll split apart. I'll show you. I'll demonstrate that just by. Maybe when you first start you won't see this, but I'll try and demonstrate it anyway. We'll get a crate. We'll make it big. We'll extract it. We'll make it dynamic by pressing the Y key. We'll put one down, and we'll put another down, almost overlapping it. And then a third one, and a fourth one. You see, in real space, the real world, that isn't possible. That's physically not possible. But we're in a virtual world, we can do what we want. But as soon as the physics kicks in, it's going to try and resolve this into real world Newtonian physics. And they're basically just going to fly apart. I mean, it's as if those two things had just ran into each other at such high velocity that they managed to end up in that state within one cycle. So don't be surprised if these things shoot 1,000,000 miles an hour away from us. I think we'll all agree that's a pretty, that's a better than the first game. But again, we'll just press save. Always remember to save your map. Always a good idea as well to save on the different numbers as well. So I would do save as my level and then my level 2. In fact 002. So you can actually do 999 before you're actually done. And then you could probably just start again with a different file name. So now we've saved that level, we can do standalone executable, or we can do test game. I'm going to do test game because if there's any problems with the number of crates I've added, or the position of the enemies, or it's just too easy, or it's just too hard, then I can tweak it before I make my final game. So I've just remembered, I was rather clever about this. The physics system runs a pre-simulation before it switches the graphics on in the game. So if there are situations where you've basically accidentally overlapped two objects, the physics universe resolves itself before it actually shows what's on the game. That's why they completely resolve themselves sitting side by side, even though they're all overlapped at one point. But expect that. If you put a lot of things all on top inside each other, they will expand out, find their own space. So we're going to go around this corner. As you can see, there's nobody around this corner right now. Look, there's no one there, no enemy. And I'm going to look whenever I keep looking backwards. Normally you just charge for the corner, wouldn't you? And you get surprised, but I'm going to keep looking here. Ta-da! It got spawned, and then it'll start killing me. I have no weapons, and I have no lives. But we're in test game, so that's great. It doesn't matter that we've only got one life. We're in test game. We have infinite number of lives in test game. But I have very low health and no weapon, so I don't know whether I'm able to get to these crates. So I'm going to run for it. He can only shoot me if he's got line of sight. Those are boxes. That's going to try and block us, so that's fine. Whoa! So they suddenly woke up. So that's interesting. Doesn't it seem as though all of them were spawned, which is wasn't our intention. So if we remove this wall, just to see what actually happens. See, this is the beauty of test game, that you can actually refine your logic before you make it into a standalone executable and try and sell it. Ah, interesting, isn't it? They weren't set to spawn equals null, which we can do now. So we'll delete 2 of them. So that's how we know. See, spawn at start, yes. I must have just dropped a new one in and it didn't remember the last settings. So we click apply changes. Now that won't be spawned when you first start the game. We'll put 3 down as usual. Should we put no? I'm not going to make it a cruelly difficult level. Put the wall back. Don't need that now. Oh, here's a good idea. Don't put the wall back just yet. You'll learn this when you start more advanced scripting and programming. Never assume anything. Always see if you can sort of visually verify it. So when we start the game, have we definitely not spawned them at the start? Yes. So you visually confirm that your fix worked. And then you can put the wall back. Just now check, see if there's any question marks for any questions. Okay, got a question mark. Will there be any change in baked lighting inside buildings so shadows errors will not occur? Yeah, I presume you mean those sort of strange vertex artifacts. I blame just the general, the nuances of the current light mapper. The light mapper's quite over 2 years old now, and there are improvements that can be made. Rather than try and battle with that light mapper, which is getting a bit ancient now, my thought is to kind of look for a new light mapping solution, whether that be open source, or I've been talking with some larger technologies. It's all pretty much under wraps, and I still need all the green lights and all the ducks in a row and all the boxes ticked. But hopefully we can get a more industry strengthened light mapping solution, then that will be dropped in, thus eliminating said artifacts. But I would have liked to have demonstrated lights inside buildings, but it's probably beyond the scope of this particular broadcast. Rest assured that yes, you can put static lights in a building, light map with F4, and you get all them lights and the shadows cast around the insides of buildings, which looks pretty cool. Another question mark: how did you paint a perfectly straight line in the 25 years of practice? I'll do it again to show off. So before I pressed, you notice I keep clicking at save. It's just paranoia. If I pick a path and I can draw it like that, which is pretty straight. But look, I'm a bit crooked. Here's an interesting thing to do. Hold down the left mouse button and use the arrow keys up and down. Because they're actually exactly on one axis, you'll get a perfect line. So it's a massive cheat. But that's how you do it. You basically keep the mouse pointer still, hold down the left mouse button, and then move the arrow keys, and then you've basically got an Etch-a-Sketch in your light. So that's how you do it, if you want to do it that way. So let's do test game. Let's see whether those second three enemies won't be waiting for us when we jump over them crates, and we're not going to wait around to see what that enemy behind us is doing. We're just going to run for it. And that sound you hear, we can actually change that sound effect to anything you want. So, crates this high are a bit wobbly. Should be able to push that one. I haven't got a gun, so I'm not going to go back around that corner. Now watch, as soon as I cross the threshold, they all appear. They've got many, many bullets. And there's the end of my game. So I can win. Level complete triggered is the text. Obviously, it's an interesting question actually. Can you trigger a win zone and then be shot so you actually lose the game? I think you probably can. So basically the rule of thumb is don't assume just because you've actually got through a win zone that you're actually going to win. The crate isn't suddenly got a life, it's being pushed by the merciless enemy. Okay, this needs to be restored. This balancing act, I need to give myself some defences here. So it's going to be an Uzi, and it's going to be lots of Uzi ammo. Yes, it's more like it. Save. I'm quite happy with my standalone now, so I'm going to save standalone and try and get to the end. More question marks, please. Good grief, blah blah blah. Why don't the editor icons stay highlighted so we know which mode we are currently in? Great question, good feature suggestion there. The reason is the BCG tools, which is the kind of middleware for these gadgets, didn't support a permanent highlight on them. I'd have to go into the actual C code itself and hack in some sort of highlight. Should be relatively easy, but I don't want to invest too much into this IDE because we've had internal talks about replacing the whole IDE with something a little bit more modern, a bit more streamlined, maybe getting rid of the whole Windows thing altogether and going for a more 3D look, so everything's sort of semi-transparent, glassy, 3D rotating of previews on entities, that kind of thing, and maybe having more fun with the UI. So don't really want to put a lot of energy into an IDE that ultimately gets scrapped. But you know, if it gets voted to the top, then that's what we'll add, no problem at all. Scrolly. Okay, cool, no more question marks. So I can carry on with my demonstration of what we've made. So going to my games. You notice because we changed the level, when we saved it, we changed it to my level 002. So it takes the name of the level to actually define, or rather the name of the first level. I think in a previous broadcast I demonstrated multiple levels. So we're going to run that. And now we've got like a proper game. Less than an hour. I've managed to customise all the menu screens, some of the buttons, created a game that you can win, lose, There's more logic going on than just dropping stuff in, because we've got really clever things now where you can actually spawn stuff. And you can imagine, if you had more than an hour, you could make prettier graphics, you could refine the level design a lot more, you could scrutinise exactly when enemies will appear and how much ammo you should be given. For example, right now, I've just given myself my favourite weapon with 180 bullets. And I haven't given myself any more health, which is what you could do to totally turn the tide. But I don't think I'm going to need it. I'm pretty good at this. Yes! Then I steal his gun. Cap! So back to Uzi. Get these out of the way. Obviously a shotgun will do great on these, moving the... But Uzis are more like a piercing weapon, so you don't really get that. I'm going to do a reverse walk. Get rid of these guys. What I'll need to do is pick and choose my battles. I can't stand there Uziing them. Yes. 30 left. Yeah. Okay, that's that. And then when we run through, fades out. Congrats! We won the game! Hooray! So there you go. I've made a game and customised the menus, and you can win and lose. And just to show, I'm going to actually lose now and see if we can get the game over screen. And if anybody wants this game, I shall be hosting it on Steam next week. It will be priced at $49.99 in all its glory, and you can just keep playing this level over and over and over again until you get sick. With the promise that you can just get GameGuru for a couple of dollars and then make as many games as you want. Oh, I need to lose, don't I? So I'll just try and run. I'm all very innocent. Da, 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 da. Oh, look at these crates. Oh, who's shooting me? And then I'm dead. I only had one life, so it's game over. And you know what? We've got a couple of minutes left. There doesn't seem to be any question marks. So what I'm going to do is try and drop in that OGG file that we saw before. Maybe we can get some music going on. If I go back to Titles Bank and the escape, see this title.ogg? .ogg is an alternative to .wav. It's similar to MP3, but there's no license restriction considerations. So you can actually get a converter which will turn WAVs into OGGs. OGGs are massively compressed. This was probably like 20 meg as a WAV, and it's only half a meg as an OGG. So if we take that and we drop it into my first menus, in theory it should pick that up and then play some title music on a standalone menu. Maybe. Only way to find out is to just do it. So we go to GameGuru, save standalone. Because our styles was already set, if we look at title bank style.txt, see, my first menus. So it is going to look into this folder and pick things out of it. And it may pick title.ogg. We're going to find out. So it's finished building the executable. So we'll go into here. Easiest way to find out if it's going to do anything, let's have a look in there. Yay, it's there. See, so it did copy it over. So maybe, fingers crossed, it'll actually use it. Oh, I surprised myself. Alright, whoever's in charge of the documentation, please add that if you include a WAV or an OGG into the specified Titles Bank folder, it will trigger that music to be played. How cool is that? So that's something you didn't know 50 minutes ago. Or maybe you did. But I certainly didn't. Question. Probably not time now, but the music system for dynamic music and such will be a good idea to show. Perhaps add in that broadcast. Yes, I'm not the best person to demonstrate that. I think Ravy wrote the dynamic music system. I can certainly give you a quick tour. We have actually got a couple of minutes left, and there's no harm in doing a bit of trial and error. I'm pretty sure it still works, but because it's not really part of our regular build tests, it may have escaped our attention. So if we go to Files, Script Bank, and look for something called music.lua. It's very, very complicated. There's quite a lot in here, but what it does is very simple. You can specify with track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, 4 music files. So, you know, lee1.wav, lee2.wav, lee3.ogg, lee4.ogg, whatever it is. And then you've got something here which will load those musics. It'll preload them, so it loads them before the game starts, so you're not suddenly having the game freeze as it brings in another track. That's the command which is there. So inside here, it's just issuing a command into the engine to load the music with some parameters. There's a music play command. Call me crazy, but I think you could probably, in your own script, issue music play with the number being 1, 2, 3, or 4, with a fade in time, so how long it will actually fade or fade out the other music. So you can fade it in slowly as the mystery changes, or quickly if you're suddenly being attacked by a great three-headed monster. An instant, if you don't want to fade time, you just want it to do it instantly, you can do that, and you can cue music up, so you can basically cue music one after the other. And you can stop the music, set its volume, set it back to a default, and so on and so forth. My advice, if you want to play around with it, is just call these commands inside your own script. So when I say inside your own script, I mean something like light switch. So inside here, obviously we've got this part which will show the light. So underneath it, you could actually put music play, whatever it is, whatever the command is, and then just see if it works. And if it does, feedback, say yes it works, but we need an absolutely, detailed explanation of it, in which case I will hand over the reins to Ravi because he wrote it. I think he wrote it. I certainly didn't write it. I don't remember writing it. So looking for some more question marks. We've got like 2 minutes left. Yeah. I actually checked out Tarkus. I actually checked out your game. Very cool indeed. Before this broadcast, I'm showing actually how to customize the menus. Tarkus already did. So every screen was changed, every button was changed. Went in, didn't recognize any of the graphics, so it was a really great experience. I only got to the room. I didn't know where to find the 10 things that I was supposed to collect, so I just was wandering around, exploring all the items. I also like the way the notes disintegrate after you've read them, so you really do have to pay attention. You can't actually retrieve information that you've read. So trying to remember that 5-digit code was really difficult after a full day of coding. So yeah, good luck with that. I hope you win some cash. Hope you win some kudos. Okay, I'm glad I gave a little bit more information, Retro Game Bloke, and hopefully I can add to that once I find out who actually wrote the dynamic music system. Yes, Lord Julian, you are completely late. We have literally 1 minute left of broadcast, but in a couple of minutes I will be committing it onto Twitch, and you can watch the whole hour. And then we'll put it on YouTube a couple of days later, and then it'll be there for all time. Broadcasts that are retained on Twitch only last a couple of days, so it's not a permanent place for them. We moved them all onto YouTube. Yes, absolutely. I just skimmed through. All I wanted to know is the passcode to get through the door. There is a doc file for the dynamic music. Great. So I'll leave this comment thing open for a couple of minutes, and maybe Pirate Mike, you can post information on where that is. Showing my ignorance now. But yeah, if that information can be put into the comment section, then I can know it, and then the next time somebody asks, I will be able to answer. But if I do suspend the broadcast, just email me the information so I know about it. So that's GameGuru. We created a whole game in less than an hour that looks a bit like this, and we customised all the menus and a few of the buttons, and even added music to our menu as well. So I hope this was enjoyable, entertaining, enthralling. It gives you an appetite for the next broadcast. I can't tell you when that is. We're really knee-deep in performance work and really enjoying ourselves there. It probably will be Ravy, so perhaps a subject of his choice, or if there's some requests on the GameGuru forum, because we have a forum open now for specifically requests on what we should talk about during these Twitch sessions, then we'll defer to that rather than our own sordid imaginations. Great, thanks for that. Steam Apps Common, GameGuru Docs. I should have been able to have guessed that. So there you go. GameGuru Docs, the music system. Brilliant. So, GameGuru, the music system, draft 0.1, and then a massive description of how to use it. Perfect. So definitely do check that out. Steven Spielberg once said that music and sound effects are, get this, 50% of the experience of modern entertainment. So don't underrate the use of music and sound effects in your creations. We support it through sound zones, music playing in the background, and dynamic music, so please do check that out and improve your creations in that way if you want to. Plenty of music out there. Check out Shockwave Sound, great resource for royalty-free stuff. Okay, I have exceeded my timetable. I hope it was enjoyable. Thanks very much for your attention. I will put this out on YouTube in the days to come. So until the next Twitch broadcast, I shall say goodbye and thanks very much for your attention. I don't remember the hotkeys, so you're going to see a really cool software for broadcasting, streaming over the net. So I will switch to standby, and I will say goodbye and thanks very much. See ya!